President Trump's own Justice Department is accusing him of directing illegal payments during the 2016 presidential campaign. On Friday, special counsel Robert Mueller and federal prosecutors in New York each released memos detailing evidence provided by the president's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen.
Mr. Cohen alleges he acted at the direction of individual one, which is President Trump, to pay hush money to two women who claim they had sexual relations with Mr. Trump. At least one top House Democrat argues these allegations could lead to impeachment proceedings. Break this down. Bob Litt is in Washington. He's a former Deputy Assistant Attorney General and a former General Counsel for the Director of National Intelligence. Bob, good to see you this morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
So break down what each of these two filings means for President Trump. The quote here is, in the filing, in coordination with or at the direction of individual one.
Well, the first thing it means is that the president really has two separate fronts that he has to be concerned about now, because the filing that relates to the payments to the women was made by the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, which is independent of the Mueller investigation. I worked in that office and when I started my legal career, and it's somewhat affectionately known as the Sovereign District of New York because it's so independent from the main justice. But he's now got two separate prosecutors who are looking at two separate aspects of his behavior. What it actually boils down to in the end, we'll have to see, because the campaign finance violations that are at issue in the New York case require that a person know that he is violating the campaign finance law. So even if the president directed the payments, the prosecutors would still have to show that he knew that that was a violation of campaign finance law. And we don't know what they know in that regard. We don't know what Michael Cohen may be saying about the conversations he had with the president. Flipping to the other side, to Mueller, he is laying out an extensive network of contacts between Russians and members of the Trump campaign. But here again, we don't know everything that Mueller knows. A lot of this is still behind the curtain. Mueller's office has been very tight-lipped and has doled out information at the time when they think it's necessary. So we're just going to have to wait and see how the facts develop in these. But the bottom line is the president has two separate legal fronts that he needs to be concerned about.
So let's talk a little bit about the memo written by the Southern District. So this is the first time that the president has been linked to a federal crime, the crime of illegal payments. Do you expect, or is it a possibility, that the president of the United States could be indicted in the Southern District? And if that happens, what sort of impact could that have on the Mueller investigation? Well,
the Department of Justice policy, as expressed in a memorandum by the Office of Legal Counsel, is that a sitting president can't be indicted. And I would expect that the Southern District of New York would probably follow that policy. And so I wouldn't expect to see President Trump indicted while he is in office. What you might see is some sort of charges against other people which name the president as an unindicted co-conspirator. Or you might simply see nothing more happen and the matter simply referred to Congress for them to take care of.
So, I mean, I'm interested in some of the things that the president has been tweeting about. He tweeted that he was totally cleared. This morning, I thought it was interesting, he tweeted about this indictment that has come down from Michael Cohen, and he said this, Bob. He said, I'm looking at the specific tweet. So let's go with this sentence. That's because there was no collusion, so now the Dems go to a simple private transaction. He calls it a private transaction, wrongly call it a campaign contribution, which is, it was not. But even if it was, it is only a civil case like Obama's. So I guess what he's pointing to is the Obama campaign was violated campaign finance laws, I guess, as well, but they were fined $300 and something thousand. Many experts have said that this is not the same thing as what President Obama's campaign did. Help our viewers understand what the president is referring to and what it means legally.
Well, I'm not totally familiar with the facts of the Obama case, but I would assume that the difference, again, is what I was talking about before. In order to be a criminal violation of the campaign finance laws, you have to show that the person conducting the activity knew that they were violating the campaign finance laws and intended to violate the campaign finance laws. That can be a difficult standard to meet. If you remember, Senator John Edwards was indicted under similar circumstances for covering up payments to his mistress, and the allegation was this was done to help him in his campaign, and the jury acquitted him. They found that this was not a violation of the campaign finance laws. On the other hand, in this case, Michael Cohen has pleaded guilty to criminal violations of the campaign finance laws. So Cohen at least is acknowledging that he knew that this was a campaign finance violation. And we just have to see what the evidence shows as to the president's knowledge.
Yeah, let me just clarify. The $375,000 fine that was levied by the Federal Election Commission in early 2013 was against President Obama's 2008 presidential campaign, and it included reporting the wrong dates on certain contributions and missing filing deadlines, which in and of itself is not a crime in the way that you're describing these two indictments. I just wanted to clarify that for our viewers.
So, Bob, I want to ask you this. You know, this is a federal crime, right? Campaign violation. Is this an impeachable offense, in your opinion?
Well, whether something's an impeachable offense is not strictly a legal issue. It's really more of a political issue. It may not be correct to say that an impeachable offense is whatever the House of Representatives says it is, but there is a strong element of politics implicated here. There's nothing that says that campaign finance violations can't be an impeachable offense, and it's hard, frankly, to differentiate the violations in this case from some of the violations that were charged against President Clinton that also had to do with personal behavior. But I think that before the House moves ahead on impeachment, they need to consider, is there any realistic process, any realistic likelihood that there would be a conviction in the Senate? And if not, is it worth going ahead with impeachment proceedings?
It's a good point that you raise. I mean, there are some people who would like to see that and others who say it's not the thing to do because we can't just go around willy-nilly removing presidents. But it does sort of I think the thing that I think about and what I've seen on social media people reacting to is if as all this information comes out, it appears that the president, because if you think about it, those two payments, had they been made public before the election, in an election that was decided by, you know, a few thousand votes in certain Midwestern states, would that have changed the outcome of the election? And that's something that Congress, I guess, is going to have to look at. If the president was elected president because of information the voters did not have, what does that constitute, and does the Constitution make amends for that?
Well, and the same point you make can also be made with respect to the Russian contacts in the Mueller inquiry, which is to say if the full information about that, whatever it proves to be, had come out in the course of the election, would that have made a difference? We'll never know for sure in that, but that's certainly an assessment that the Congress should be making in assessing how to proceed.
Really interesting stuff. Bob Litt, thank you so much for breaking it down for us. We so appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.